Hello, Madeleine Karako, and here's another sanity saver for you, a handwritten note. Never underestimate the power of a handwritten note. When I was first married, we had been married a couple of months, and we found out we were pregnant very quickly, and my husband had to go to officer training school. And while he was at officer training school, I miscarried our first child. And it was this really traumatic experience. I was teaching at a school for special needs students at the time. And it had been a couple of weeks since the miscarriage, and I had to have an emergency surgery and all this just hospitalization that I never expected. And so it had been 2 weeks since I was back at work, and I hadn't told anyone, only the primary teacher that I worked with had I told what happened. But there was this nun who worked at the school, and she had no idea what was going on, what had happened with me. But I went upstairs to my desk one morning and I found this note on my desk. I had no idea where it came from or who it was from, but the words spoke directly to my heart. And they said, "In all things and at all times, keep your eyes clearly focused upon me. I am to be your guiding star, leading you wherever you must now go. Those who are far out to sea and know not where they are going may look to the North Star and be safely guided through all danger. I am now and always will be your North Star. Whenever your eyes are clearly focused upon me, you will be safe. Whenever you try to make it on your own, you will get lost. Remember this always and never ever take your eyes off me. North stars, although they may appear small and very far away, are always a sign of hope to those who are lost at sea. Be mine fully and completely. When you look to me for your hope and safety, you will always find what you need. In your darkest hour, look up." So again, when I found this on my desk, I almost just started weeping because it was as if the Lord had written me a note and put it on my desk. And I later found out one of the nuns who worked at the school, she often had Jesus speak to her, and he would often tell her, "Write a note, here's who it's for." And that was all the explanation she got. And that's what she told me had happened. The Lord had told her to write a note and put it on my desk. And again, she had no idea what I was going through at the time. So the power of a handwritten note, that changed my whole perspective at that time. I was in a pretty I was despairing for sure at that point when I got this letter. And just to be reminded in my darkest hour, look up to the Lord, look up to Jesus. They're there, they're with me. The saints also knew the power of a well written note. Saint Catherine of Siena wrote so many letters. Uh, Google it, you can find just a lot of material when it comes to letters from Saint Catherine of Siena. She often wrote Pope Gregory, and they had kind of a back and forth sort of pen pal relationship. And you can find almost all the letters that she wrote to Pope Gregory online. And I'm going to read an excerpt from one of them, one of her letters to Pope Gregory. "So take a lesson from the true father and shepherd, for you see that now is the time to give your life for the little sheep who have left the flock. You must seek and win them back by using patience and war. By war, I mean by raising the standard of the sweet, blazing cross and setting out against the unbelievers. So you must sleep no longer, but wake up and raise that standard courageously. I am confident that by God's measureless goodness, you will win back the unbelievers, and at the same time, correct the wrongdoing of Christians, because everyone will come running to the fragrance of the cross, even those who have rebelled against you most." So at this time period, it's like 1372, and a woman nun is writing to the Pope and basically instructing him on how to handle situations. St. Catherine of Siena, for many reasons, but one of them being how greatly she encouraged the Pope at that time to win back believers and to be a man of example, a man of the example of Christ. She is now one of the doctors of the church, one of the female doctors of the church. And it is in large part due to all these letters that she wrote to Pope Gregory that truly changed things and changed the way he handled things. The amount of power a woman would have to have at that time for a pope to respect her enough to not only read her letters, but listen to them and reply to them, it's a very big deal. Another saint who has letters that she wrote that we can find and read is Saint Zelie Martin. She often wrote to her husband. She also wrote to her brother, and I have an expert from one of her letters from that Saint Zelie wrote to her brother Isidore. "If you only knew what trials he had to go through, I beg you, my dear Isidore, to do as I did. Pray, and you will not be carried away by the current. If you succumb once, you will be lost. On the road to perdition, as on the road to salvation, the first step is all important. Afterwards, you will be carried away by the current. When I closed the eyes of my dear little children and buried them, I really felt the pain. It is a pain to which I have always been resigned. I do not regret the pain and the anxieties I have had to endure on their account. Many people have said to me it would have been better if you had never had them. I cannot tolerate these words. The pains and anxieties of this life cannot be compared to the eternal happiness of my children. After all, they have not been lost forever. Life is short and full of suffering. We shall find them in heaven. So again, uh, the power in her words, the power in the written word, that even a mother who had experienced having to lose and bury several of her children, not regretting those children, not regretting that she had those pregnancies, but instead looking at her suffering as something to be offered back to the Lord, and looking at it as something that can be offered to her brother as an example of when times are tough, they're tough and you don't run away from that. And I love what she says with the first step you take, either towards salvation or not, is often the hardest one. So when you're faced with something, the first step that you take in that journey of either I'm going to take a step towards despair or I'm going to take a step toward the cross and offering this to Christ and making good out of this suffering, that first step often puts you on a path and a current that carries you a little bit. Then the Lord and the saints and Mary and all the angels in heaven carry you along after you've taken some of the hardest first steps. And the same goes for the opposite direction. You take that step towards despairing and evil, and the current of that is going to carry you further down. Satan is waiting. The evil out there is waiting for you to take that step towards it, and it will carry you off if you let it. So again, the power of the written word, the power of uh, writing someone a handwritten note. The saints understood this. I think it's harder for us to understand this in our day and age because so little is handwritten anymore. For my shop, I always write a handwritten thank you note, and it's not like a copy of my handwritten thank you note. I write each one because I really do believe in the power of that and the power of someone using their hand and taking the time to write a note. And it doesn't have to be something grand or profound, but just a written note it stands the test of time. My husband and I have so many letters that we wrote back and forth to each other when he was in officer training school or when he was deployed. We even wrote to each other when we were first dating. We had a notebook that we would pass back and forth to each other because I was in school and he had already graduated. So I would write notes to him and then give them to him because we couldn't spend a ton of time together because I was busy in school and then studying when I wasn't. So, and then he was working full time. So use the handwritten word to your benefit. It's an incredible gift. And what a gift that we still have the letters from the saints today that they wrote and the power that they had at the time, uh, from something so great as inspiring the Pope at the time, and something that may seem smaller but was still just as significant, empowering St. Zelie's own brother to make good choices and to follow in the footsteps of Christ. That's my sanity saver for you today, the power of a handwritten note. My life has been changed by many letters that I have been given. I hope that we all can cling to that old-fashioned method of communicating and just continue on in that tradition of the saints.